Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. A 30-year-old Western Australian woman is lucky to be alive after she woke up earlier this month to find herself in the midst of a terrifying attack, one that sadly claimed the life of her mother. According to reports, the nightmare began for 30-year-old Emma Egan on the night of November 18th when she was asleep in bed at home in the Perth suburb of Beckenham. Suddenly, at around 11:20 p.m., she was awoken to the feeling of something sharp pressed against her face. She opened her eyes to find herself face to face with a man who was allegedly armed with a piece of glass. After fighting for her life with the attacker, Emma managed to escape, though sadly, she would soon learn that this wasn't the case for everyone in the house. Her 63-year-old mother, Julianne Egan, was found dead on the floor of her nearby bedroom after having suffered multiple stab wounds to her neck. Emma was treated for several serious injuries after police arrived at the scene, while her sister and niece managed to escape physically unharmed. Following a 12-hour manhunt, police arrested the person allegedly responsible for the harrowing attack, a 25-year-old man named Deng David Kerr. So far, almost nothing else about the incident has been revealed to the public, and it appears that police themselves are still trying to work out exactly what happened. In a statement to the media, a representative from the state police said, quote, "We have no idea what has actually happened inside the house. We know an altercation has occurred, but the actual intricacies of it all, we have no idea at this point in time." The only other detail that appears to be available is that Kerr was apparently known to the victims prior to the attack, though Emma described him as someone the family hardly knew, saying, quote, "I've met him briefly once before." Adding further tragedy to the situation, it seems that the whole ordeal has also left the surviving victims homeless. The residence where Emma and her family were living apparently belongs to the Department of Communities and was in her mother's name, so she has since been forced to leave. She claims she and the other victims have received no help or support in the aftermath of the crime. At the time of this recording, Kerr remains in custody and has been charged with murder and attempted murder. Authorities in the Argentine province of Chubut say that they are investigating a bizarre theft and property destruction case this week after a man allegedly destroyed his friend's vehicle during the middle of a full-on meltdown, one which was apparently triggered by an argument over eggs. According to reports, the strange situation unfolded sometime on November 22nd, when the alleged victim, Federico Maximiliano Berardo, went to a car dealership in the city of Puerto, Madryn, owned by his friend Mauro Martinez. While it's unclear exactly how things got started, witnesses say that shortly after Berardo entered the business, an argument began between the two men. Things apparently escalated when Berardo threw a chair at Martinez, though he was apparently unhurt. The two both then ran from the building, at which point Martinez threw a rock that hit one of his own vehicles. With his rage evidently still growing, Martinez continued to follow Berardo back to his white truck. Once there, he began to repeatedly hit the vehicle with what appeared to be two metal bars. Shocked onlookers filmed part of the encounter as Martinez dented the truck's roof and doors and smashed the windshield and rear window. He also allegedly stole his friend's keys, as well as a backpack containing his cell phone, a jacket, and some personal documents. Finally, Martinez returned to his own vehicle that he had hit with the rock before, smashing it up with a large stick too before leaving the scene. Berardo filed a police report shortly after the incident, during which he revealed the bizarre reason that had apparently started it all. He claimed that Martinez was angry because he wanted some of the eggs from his chickens. When Berardo explained that he couldn't give him any because they were in an incubator, Martinez allegedly flew off the handle. Hours later, Martinez reportedly showed up at the police station himself, filing a counterclaim against his friend. He insisted that Berardo was the one who had smashed up his vehicle, evidently unaware that bystanders had recorded footage of him damaging both vehicles. At the time of this recording, though, police say that they are investigating the situation further before moving forward with any charges. As if all of this weren't weird enough, This is actually the second violent chicken-related incident to make local news in the Argentine city this week. A few days after the truck-smashing egg argument, a man known locally as Pikachu allegedly shot at his neighbor's house with an air rifle and threatened to kill them because he said a rooster at the property was interfering with his sleep. The woman who owns the house that was targeted told the media that the rooster is an emotional support animal for her father, who recently suffered a stroke. Representatives from England's Avon and Somerset police say that they are investigating a mysterious murder case this week after a man was found dead following a call that initially started out as an alleged robbery. According to reports, the whole thing began at around 4:15 on the morning of November 27th, when authorities were called to the Royal Grosvenor Hotel in the town of Weston-super-Mare. Officers arrived to find a man who said that he had been the victim of a robbery. Things almost immediately took a surprising turn, however, when the alleged victim led them to an address a short distance away on Upper Church Road. Inside, police found another man who was suffering from serious stab wounds. Emergency responders attempted to save the man's life, though sadly, nothing could be done and he was later pronounced dead at the scene. The man has since been identified as 43-year-old Dominic Wilson. Wilson was described by his family as a loving father who was known for his bubbly character and who always lived life to the fullest. At the time of this recording, it appears that few details have been released about the circumstances surrounding Dominic's death. It's unclear how the alleged crime unfolded, what motivated it, and what relation it has to the initial robbery call that authorities received. What we do know is that 2 suspects in their 40s were quickly arrested on suspicion of murder following the incident, only to later be released without any charges. Since then, 4 more suspects have been arrested, all of whom remain in custody at the time of this recording. The main suspects have been identified as a 29-year-old woman and a 39-year-old man who have been arrested on suspicion of murder. The 2 other suspects, both men ages 45 and 54, have been arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. Currently, police say that they are trying to obtain as much CCTV footage as they can from the area around the crime scene, and that they are going door-to-door interviewing potential witnesses. Residents in the area have also been asked to keep their garbage bins temporarily out so that detectives can search them for possible evidence connected to the case. The situation is still under investigation. Representatives from the Tokyo Metropolitan Police say that a trio of would-be thieves got more than they bargained for this week when they attempted to carry out a brazen smash-and-grab robbery, only to find themselves outmatched by an employee wielding a traditional Japanese weapon. The whole thing unfolded at around 6:40 p.m. on November 26th, when a pair of men on a motorbike pulled up to a business that sells jewelry and precious metals in the city's Ueno district. Without taking off their helmets, the men walked inside, where they proceeded to pull out crowbars and start smashing the shop's display cases, evidently with the intent of getting their hands on the store's valuables. Moments later, a third man pulled up on a second motorbike. Just like the other suspects, he also kept his helmet on and removed a crowbar from his jacket and headed for the entrance. Much to the man's surprise, though, he hadn't even made it through the doorway when his 2 accomplices ran into him. It turned out that they were desperately trying to get away from one of the business's employees, who was wielding a traditional Japanese weapon called a sasumata. For those unfamiliar, a sasumata is a type of pole arm that has a 2-pronged fork at the end. While the one the employee was carrying was definitely a more modern style, the use of the defensive weapons reportedly dates back to the country's Edo period, which began in the 17th century. Its purpose apparently hasn't changed much either. Back then, it was also used to catch criminals. In video footage of this week's incident, the shop employee, who is wearing suspenders, can be seen chasing the 3 suspects out into the street. The suspects are seen momentarily hesitating as if they're going to try and run back to their motorbikes before appearing to realize that the reach of the pole arm is too great and that they're not getting them back. The employee gives the bikes a couple of whacks with the arm for good measure before running off after the men down the street. The suspects reportedly fled empty-handed. In the aftermath of the incident, Orders for polearms like the ones used by the employee have apparently surged across the country. An auto manufacturer that also makes the weapon says that the person in charge of taking orders has barely been able to get away from the phone. According to police, 2 of the would-be robbers, identified only as 18-year-old men, have since turned themselves in. Authorities say that they are still searching for the 3rd suspect, but believe it'll only be a matter of time before he is identified thanks to ample surveillance footage around the crime scene and the fact that they have the man's motorbike. Witnesses also reported seeing the bikes in the area in the days prior, and it's now believed that the men may have cased the business before the attempted robbery. The situation is still developing. Authorities in the Australian state of New South Wales say that they are on the hunt for a sticky-fingered culprit this week after a woman stole a van from a gas station that apparently contained 10,000 Krispy Kreme donuts. According to reports, the theft took place at a 7-Eleven location in the Sydney suburb of Carlingford at around 4 o'clock in the morning on November 29th. The suspect, an unidentified woman, was captured by the business's surveillance cameras as she waited around the area for a short time before jumping into the unattended parked vehicle and driving off. Representatives from Krispy Kreme now say that in the back of the stolen van were 10,000 of their fresh donuts, which were on their way to be delivered to stores in the city of Newcastle. While it's unclear if the female suspect actually knew what she was stealing since the van was unmarked, apparently the haul of donuts is worth quite a bit of money. At around $4 Australian each per donut, the sweet treats are valued at around $40,000, or about $26,000 US. At the time of this recording, police say that they are still searching for the stolen van, though have yet to identify the suspect. Krispy Kreme, meanwhile, say that they are now working overtime to make up for the anticipated donut shortage in Newcastle. Authorities in the Irish capital of Dublin say that 4 people are injured this week, 3 of them children, following a stabbing attack at a local primary school, a crime which triggered destructive and controversial riots. The incident unfolded on the afternoon of November 23rd at a primary school on Parnell Square East, located in the heart of the city. According to reports, students were lining up outside the building around 1:40 p.m. when they were approached by a man who proceeded to attack them with a knife. Though the attack itself was over quickly thanks to the help of numerous bystanders who intervened almost immediately. Sadly, several people were still wounded, including 3 of the school's young students. The children had been identified only as 2 girls and 1 boy between the ages of 5 and 6. The final victim was a woman in her 30s, identified as an employee of the school. The woman is said to have heroically used her own body as a shield to protect the students. 2 of the children have since been released from the hospital, though unfortunately it appears that the woman and the remaining child are still in critical condition. While the attack understandably generated public outrage, this apparently escalated into a full-blown riot in the hours following the attack. Local media reports state that at least 500 people took to the streets, with many blaming the crime on the country's immigration system and migrants more broadly. Officers attempted to get the situation under control, but were apparently outnumbered at least 4-1, leaving them unable to stop things from growing increasingly violent. In the ensuing chaos, at least 11 police vehicles, 3 buses, and a tram were destroyed, while 13 businesses were badly damaged and looted. Police say that this has made investigating the actual stabbing incident difficult, as it happened in the same area and they were forced to deviate significant resources towards re-establishing public order. At least 48 people have now been arrested in connection with the riot, though authorities say more are likely to follow. As for the actual suspect behind the attack, almost no details about his identity appear to have been released at this time. However, there are unconfirmed reports that he is an Irish citizen of Algerian background in either his late 40s or early 50s who had been living in the country for at least 20 years. Authorities have stated that they do not believe the incident was terror-related, though have not provided any information about a possible motive. Ironically, several of those who stopped the attack are apparently immigrants, with one man in particular now being called a hero for his part in taking the suspect down. The man, Khiao Benicio, was reportedly driving by the scene on his motorbike when he saw the attack unfolding and immediately pulled over to help. Benicio pulled off his helmet and allegedly struck the suspect in the head with it, causing him to fall to the ground. Benicio, who is originally from Brazil, told the media in an interview that he does not see himself as a hero and rather was motivated to act by the thought of something like this happening to his own 2 children. At the time of this recording, the stabbing suspect remains in the hospital where he is said to be suffering from severe injuries. The situation is still developing. Authorities in the Indian state of Madhya Pradesh say that they have arrested a couple this week after they allegedly carried out a twisted murder plot against a young man as revenge for allegedly humiliating the boyfriend. According to reports, the case began on November 16th when police in the municipality of Amarpatan received a call about a grisly discovery. In a village just a few miles outside the city limits, a resident had discovered the headless body of a young man in some bushes. Though the condition of the remains initially made it difficult to identify the victim, police were soon able to learn his name thanks to a distinctive trident tattoo that he had. The man was 23-year-old Shailendra Tiwari, whose family had previously reported him missing. When police broke the disturbing news to the family, they explained that Shailendra had last been seen the night before his body was discovered, when he left home to attend a friend's birthday party. They hadn't been able to reach him since, and his cell phone had been switched off. After obtaining the 23-year-old's cell records, investigators learned that his last call had been to a woman in the same village where his remains were discovered. That woman, Ashika Dahia, was quickly brought in for questioning. What she told detectives was truly chilling. Dahia confessed that she had conspired with her boyfriend, Krishnanan Saket, to carry out Shailendra's murder. She explained that Saket and the victim used to be friends, but that he became extremely angry after repeated incidents where Shailendra had insulted him. The specifics of what happened aren't clear, but according to local media, on at least one occasion, Shailendra allegedly recorded himself humiliating Saket and then circulated the footage online. In order to get revenge, Dahia said that she made a fake social media profile and started a relationship with Shailendra. Once he trusted her, she suggested that they meet up. However, in actuality, she was luring him to his murder. When Shailendra arrived, Dahia and Saket were waiting and fatally attacked the 23-year-old with a knife. At the time of this recording, both Dahia and Saket have been arrested and remain in custody, though it's unclear if they are yet facing formal charges. Authorities in the Thai province of Nakhon Ratchasima say that they are investigating the aftermath of a horrifying tragedy this week after a former Paralympic athlete allegedly gunned down several people at his own wedding, killing 4 before turning his weapon on himself. According to reports, the disturbing incident began at around 11:25 p.m. on November 25th when police were called to a home in Wang Nam Khiao district. Witnesses said that they had been celebrating a wedding at the property when all of a sudden, gunfire erupted on the dance floor. Officers arrived to find a terrible and chaotic scene. Multiple victims were lying on the ground, while other attendees were still scrambling to safety. After speaking with those present, authorities learned that the alleged gunman was none other than the groom, 29-year-old Chaturong Suksuk. He and his new wife, 54-year-old Kanchana Panchantwak, had invited friends and relatives to watch them get married at their house that day. The celebration started in the morning, but continued on into a party afterwards. Witnesses explained that the atmosphere had been lively, but at some point they had overheard an argument between the newlyweds. They said that Chaturong was extremely drunk and that he was starting to get angry about Kanchana speaking with the other guests. After the argument, witnesses stated that Chaturong disappeared from the party for a short time. It's now alleged that during this time he went to his vehicle and retrieved a handgun. When he returned, he opened fire on his crowd of guests. He finished by turning his weapon on himself. Sadly, Chaturong wasn't the only casualty of the violence. His wife, her 38-year-old sister, and their 62-year-old mother were also killed, while 2 other people were struck by stray bullets. One of those victims, a 50-year-old man, reportedly died on his way to the hospital. While no motive behind the awful tragedy has been confirmed at this time, multiple sources state that Chaturong may have been insecure about his relationship. He was apparently sensitive about the age gap between him and his new wife, and also feared that she and others might see him as inferior due to his disability. According to reports, Chaturong lost his right leg following an accident while he was serving in the country's military. He had gone on to become a Paralympic athlete, winning a silver medal in a swimming event at the ASEAN Para Games last year in Indonesia. At the time of this recording, the situation is still under investigation. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.